Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Inshallah, we're going to try to fit in as many khawatir as possible. Like you saw, we're going to do very short rak'ahs, some dhikr, and then we want to benefit from our teachers as much as we can. Now we have Ustadh Mustafa with us, so please give him your attention. Barakallah feek.
Barakallah feek, Shaykh. Just a note on this. As you can notice, the Shaykh is asking a few members who have been here over the last few days to speak. I think one thing that I realized, I honestly did not want to speak last time, and I did not want to speak tonight. I just wanted to do my ibadah and focus on that. But one thing that I realized, and maybe this is the hikmah behind it, the diversity of thought that comes from a few of the members here, mashallah. We don't know who's going to listen to what and what's going to affect somebody. So maybe a different perspective might hit one member of the audience, and that may be enough. All the other speeches might not do anything. I don't know if that's going to be me. I highly doubt it. But may Allah ta'ala bless it. But inshallah, barakallah feek, Shaykh. And maybe that might encourage a certain member of the audience to come up next time, inshallah. So two reflections on Laylatul Qadr and a continuation of what I spoke about last time, Khadija radiallahu anha. They're not directly related, so you might see me jump from one topic to another. But the first one, subhanAllah, as Mundir pointed out, there's certain about the politics of the front row and the second row. I was considering and reflecting on what is our ibadah in Ramadan around Taraweeh. So for example, if you speak to a non-Muslim about Ramadan, they'll ask, oh yeah, not even water, right? That's their perception of our Ramadan. And subhanAllah, when I'm doing i'tikaf with a few of the brothers here, and we all agree, fasting is the last thing on our mind right now. It's not even a consideration, subhanAllah. We've gotten to, once you get to the 20th day, you're not even thinking about the day, you're thinking about the night. SubhanAllah, the wisdom of the hadith to look for Laylatul Qadr in the last 10 nights. Because the daytime now is easy for us. In fact, many of us take off of work so that we can sleep and focus on the night. Alhamdulillah. But I was considering all the things that we do to get here. My typical Ramadan, I'm not doing i'tikaf, but most of the members here, I understand what you're going through. You have to eat your iftar quickly. You have to get your coffee. You have to rush to get a parking spot and rush to get a spot in here. Some of you rush a little bit better than others and get closer to the front row. Some of you not so much for different reasons. Alhamdulillah. But I was considering, I was like, subhanAllah, how did our ibadah in Ramadan get to this point? Because I wasn't always like this. You might have heard a few times in Ramadan the reference to Umar ibn Khattab instituting the Jama'ah. Right? Those early years after Rasulullah's death, different groups would form in the masjid and it would be a hodgepodge of salahs. Now it's one uniformity. This is how we've experienced Ramadan our entire life. But then I went back to Khadija radiallahu anha. SubhanAllah, she was the first one of us to win Laylatul Qadr. She didn't have to Taraweeh. She didn't have to worry about iftar. She didn't have to fast. But she has the most phenomenal Laylatul Qadr in the history. Like nobody can beat her. She didn't pray 8 rak'ahs, 11 rak'ahs, 45-minute rak'ahs, witr, none of that. What did she do? Just one thing. The Rasul ﷺ came down the mountain and ran to her. Zamminuni, zamminuni, dathiruni, dathiruni. What was her ibadah? She covered him up. And then she gave him words of encouragement. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. So we may worry about how many rak'ahs am I going to get in? Am I going to be here for witr? Where am I going to be in the rows? And then it hit me. The Rasul ﷺ, I don't remember the hadith word for word, and I honestly didn't know I was going to speak, so I didn't look it up. Maybe if the Shaykh wants to give it after this, he can. But I remember a hadith where the Rasul ﷺ describes a man in the jama'ah that nobody knows. This is paraphrasing, so please don't quote me on it. But that person, his salah will validate the entire jama'ah because of his sincerity. Nobody may know him. Why? Because it's his sincerity. Just like Khadija radiallahu anha. So yes, focus on your salah. Quantity is part of Ramadan, is part of our ibadah in the nighttime. But quality is far more important. One rak'ah, one sujood might win everything for you. And you don't know who it's going to come from in the crowd. You may think it's going to come from the front row. It may be coming from outside in the tent or down the street when last night. Subhanallah. So that's the barakah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us with. That's number one. Number two, a few times this month, Surah Al-Muzammil came up. And for most of my life, I understood this revelation to be a command only to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But then I reflected on it a little bit more. And I remembered the hadith, the description of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the hadith where he came across the grave of his mother. Now this is later, this is in the Medina period. So he must be over 50 at this point, if my math is correct. So it's been 5 decades since he's seen his mother. But what does he do? He cleans the grave off, he arranges it, and then he begins to weep. Subhanallah. 5 decades, he hasn't seen her, but he begins to weep. And then I started to consider, what was he thinking at that moment? So I talked last time about when he was running down the mountain, he must have been thinking, where am I going to go? And his instinct probably kicked in, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him Khadija in that moment. But had his mother been there, I would have thought that maybe he would have ran to her. Because that's what I would do. SubhanAllah, if we're sitting here right now, everybody's sitting here, if my mother walks in that door, I'm dropping everything and I'm running to her. SubhanAllah. If the older men in the crowd, who haven't seen their mother for decades, if she walked in that door, they would recognize her in a second, and they would forget that they don't have the knees they used to the last time they saw her, and they would run. And what would they do? They would seek al-muddathir and muzammil, cover. Subhanallah. So then I began to reflect on Surah Al-Muzammil. Ya ayyuha al-muzammil, qum al-layla illa qalila. These ayat for me now are the ayat of Ramadan for me. This is not a scholar speaking. This is for me personally. When I consider what our ibadah is. For the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was a command. For us, it's optional. A third of the night, which is the last recommendation, it sounds so difficult. I'll be honest, I look forward, inshallah, if we make it there, to the sleep before Eid. We've earned it, I think, inshallah. But I look forward to it. But for the first 20 days, we prepare for the last 10 nights. And then the last 10 nights, we're standing in prayer for as much as we can. I don't know if it's just a little that we're taking off. Some nights it feels like that's what we've reached, but I highly doubt it. I don't think we've reached the level of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Subhanallah. Just to connect it to my reflection on Muzammil, the cover. In my mind, rather than seeking the cover of our mother, the cover of finances, the cover of the protection of a visa or a passport, the cover of anything else, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, come get cover here in the night. He's not saying that it's wrong. SubhanAllah, this connects to my reflection with Khadija. In the ayat that came early in Islam, she was there. She was the one covering him. SubhanAllah. Can you imagine the feeling when she heard these ayat? Muzammil and Muddathir. She was the one covering him. SubhanAllah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was not telling the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam that don't seek that cover, but He's saying if you want a better cover, it's found here. And for us, we love to come to the masjid in Ramadan. Maybe we don't do this for the rest. Maybe some do, but I honestly don't pray this much in the night. But we come because that's the cover that we want. It's that feeling that the Shaykh has been talking about. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. I had one more, but I forgot it. Barakallah feek. Assalamu alaikum.
Allahu Akbar, mashallah, that was beautiful, says Mustafa. Allah yahfadak ya Rab, barik feek, inshallah.